We're going to flip through the final voting results and to see just all the names who will stay on the ballot have to have a total of 5% just to stay on. So Jeter and Walker are in. We're going to talk about Schilling, Clemens, and Bonds momentarily. But a lot of these guys made nice jumps. I mean, Omar Vizquel you saw there as well. Gary Sheffield, he made a nice jump. Todd Helton, Jeff Kent. Now, Jeff Kent's in year number 7, but he made a jump as well. So you see Bobby Abreu got 5.5%, so he's still on there. But what do you attribute to Al to some of these guys making significant jumps?
So I think that it's clear in the deck. You know, you're getting a lot of guys that were just first ballot Hall of Famers. Yours truly, the last few years. We've had a lot of guys that have been kind of log jamming it. And I think as an opportunity, I think there's another faction of voters that are more inclined to, they get 10 votes, they're going to vote for 10. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a trend, especially with younger voters, that are more inclined, unlike me, because I'm a small hall guy, that there are people who are now strategizing with respect to how they use their vote and who, if they're on the fence, how do we figure out what the numbers would reflect to get him into the Hall of Fame? We're seeing a little bit more of that. That's why I think you're seeing that 10, 8, 10, 15 percentage vote bump.
Well, let's talk Curt Schilling, who just fell short in year 8, so he still has 2 more years. But, Jim, it certainly looks like he is trending upwards, no doubt here. Your thoughts over a 70% for Curt Schilling here?
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. I mean, you know, what he did on the mound, you know, the body of work that he put in. I think next year is his year. You know, I mean, look, this guy, Al, when you faced guys and you knew the Pedros, Verlander, you know, Roger Clemens, these guys were a step above, and Schilling was that guy for me. Randy Johnson, you know, and he's, you know, he trended up, which is great, and I look for him to get in next year for sure.
I do too. And I'll tell you what, I think the bugaboo for Curt was, forget about postseason. The numbers are off the chart, right? 11-3, the ERA at 2.23. You got an MVP in a World Series. But I think with respect to wins are becoming less important, right? You know, with respect to sabermetric community. So when you look at his wins,
otherwise he's got 216.
Yeah, no, 216, right? But I mean, the benchmark was always 300, right? But for me, when I look at and I really peel it back, I'm with you. Schill should already been in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. You talk about dominating stuff. We see the strikeouts, 15th all time. A guy who doesn't walk people. That is a strange. That's a weird combination. Dudes that strike out a lot generally walk a fair amount. Remember the bloody sock there in 04 when they went on after being down 3-0 to win the World Series, right? So that was a historic year. But I look at the 10-year window from 1995 to 2004. Here's a guy who was 148 and 86. His ERA plus over the norm of 100 was 140. I mean, in his window of dominance, and I know you faced him. I pitched against him a lot. He was one of those guys year in, year out for that 10-year window was a top 5 guy. 3 times second in the Cy Young vote. So, yeah.
And best strikeout to walk ratio in the history of baseball, by the way.
He had a year where he walked less than his starts.
Right. Jim?
Yeah, I mean, look. You know, it looks good on TV. It looked nasty in the box, and it was nasty. And that's what I go off of. You face guys, but look, the numbers say it. Right, I mean, there's no denying the numbers that he put up. And as long as he pitched, I mean, you know, he's good. I mean, I would think he's got to get in next year.
And look, he made a 9% jump this year. A 9% jump would put him in. He's at 70. He needs 75%. And look, you might not agree with whatever his stances are politically or what he says on social media or things that he has said that offended you or whatever. But that's not what this is about. This is about what this guy did when he got on the bump every 5 days. And certainly the body of work is there. Give me the case for a guy who made a move but you don't think is getting enough consideration.
So I look into Jeff Kent a little bit deeper. I mean, there's a few guys. I think Omar Vizquel is an interesting, when you start comparing guys with respect to their position. But Jeff Kent, with respect to second base and what he did for years out with the San Francisco Giants, I mean, I see a guy that's I'm not sure why he just bounces around where he does. I mean, he went to 27% from 18% last year. I mean, here's a guy, he's got an MVP in 2000, 351 home runs, the most home runs for a second baseman, 5-time All-Star. He was good at second base. He wasn't great. I think, he wasn't Roberto Alomar. I'm not saying that. But you look at his numbers, guys. I mean, comparatively with guys right there, you see the Hall of Famers next to him. I don't understand why he's been just basically around that 15% for the time that he's been on. This is 7 years now.
Yeah, he jumped to 27%. I mean, look. Second basemen don't hit home runs like this.
Right.
And this guy went, and let's remember, he did some of this in San Francisco.
Yeah, right.
And Al, going to San Francisco and playing at night is not an easy ballpark to hit in. It really surprises me that he sits in that 25 to 30% range.
Yeah.
Because look, I mean, you're talking Biggio, Sandberg, Morgan, Alomar, all different style of players. But I mean, Jeff Kent had the really as good offensive numbers, if not better, than all those guys.
Yeah. Give me a guy, Jim, you want to make a case for who?
My boy, Paulie Konerko. Okay. I know to me, we ran the numbers last night, hit 440 home runs almost, and 14, 12. I'm just disappointed that he didn't get a chance to stay on the ballot.
It's amazing.
Because this guy was a middle of the order guy. He was a leader. He won a World Series. It would have been nice to see him, remain on and see where he would have gone from there.
But Cliff Lee on that as well. That one stands out with respect to what you're talking about with Paul Konerko.
Jason Giambi on that list as well.
Yeah, look, guys. We're always sentimental for our boys. Right. You play with guys. But this is not about being sentimental. This is about the truth of a guy that really, he had really good numbers, and this guy had a really great career. And he should be very proud of that.
Yeah. And look, that's why, you got the modern era committee or, a different version of the Veterans Committee, and we'll see if he will get a good hard look once time passes and those committees take a look at him. All right, so let's get to it because they're a tandem. They're always discussed together, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. And so, it's interesting. Before, we had about 50% of the ballots in, and Bonds and Clemens were up around 70% that we knew of, and they both are just over 60%. It looked like they were going to make a significant jump. I know those numbers, Al, are always higher than once we get the official numbers. But really, they didn't really, 1 or 2% here from 2019 to 2020. And look, they've got 2 more years. So give me your interpretation here on what you see based on the numbers for Barry and Roger.
I'll tell you what, I have to admit, guys, I think in light of what I think has been trending, the fact that they only increased, is that a percent? Or not even a percent?
Just over a percentage point
so
for both.
I get the sentiment that there's a group of voters and the fans and the populace that the further we get away from the PED generation and the Mitchell report and, the hearing on Capitol Hill and all that went down, I think you're getting more of a voter block that says, who cares? They're trying to split hairs with respect to who was doing something and who wasn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. They're going to have a real tough time with 2 more years and the barely moving, with the 1%.
Yeah, you look at the last 3 or 4 years, and they've gone from like 53%, Jim, now to 60, and that's over the last 3 or 4 years. So unless there's a significant jump, and we'll see. Next year they got 2 years left. Your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be interesting because I think we've talked about this for 8 years, and this year they only came up like you said, our percentage. So this is going to be something, and I know. Baseball, we're going to talk about, the next couple years. This will be the focus on where this leads to and where it goes. But only a percentage up, it's kind of leveled off. and it'll be interesting to see.
Well, these are the names here, the notable first-time candidates on the next 2 Hall of Fame ballots. And so you talked about it before with the jump that we were seeing with some of the names that just fell short. But you see kind of like clearing out. We've got, because we've had, I think that for this decade, I think it's the highest number, the last 10 years or so, of Hall of Famers who have been elected here. And so now things are going to slow down a little bit. So actually, you got the next couple of years, probably their best opportunity.
You know, listening to our great show for the 4-hour Hall of Fame show, listening to the writer portion of it with BK, and I think all but one maybe voted for Barry and Roger, and the sentiment.
I think they all did.
They all did. I'm sorry. Yeah. The sentiment was like they're kind of exhausted with trying to figure out like who's in, who's not. Like, let's face it, like we could put up their resume. These two are the greatest all-time players with respect to their numbers in Roger and Barry. But I think I was surprised to see some of those guys, what I would consider kind of the older school writers or voters, that are voting yes to Barry and Roger with respect to not knowing how to handle it. I mean, that's I think where we are.
Yeah.
A couple more years and we will see.